Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm checking out the Pig War by Oversimplified. Never heard of a pig war before? I've heard of the Emu War in Australia, but I've never heard about a war on pigs. I can't even begin to guess what country this is in. I would assume some just random unimportant country that doesn't matter. Probably some place in Africa maybe. Can't imagine where else people would be stupid enough to go to war over a damn pig. So let's check it out. Link to the original video will be down in the description below.
Look at us, boys.
No way, it's the United States?
Bloody done it. We beat the Brits and secured independence. Now to expand westward and conquer the rest of the continent.
What?
Thomas? It looks
They
like
went to war because of a damn pig?
What? Oh no. That means we can't expand.
Oh, manifest destiny.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't say they were white people. At the end of the Revolutionary War, when the United States secured its independence from Great Britain, the two sides met in Paris to settle the terms. Among various things, they discussed American territorial gains, and the British granted them a generous amount of land out west. However, Benjamin Franklin appeared to have an additional fascination. Oh, Canada. So voluptuous. You think we can maybe acquire some of that? Quit ogling our territory. But look at
Just
those
steal
curves.
the territory that
I'd worry
Spain
less about
owns further
Canada's
west.
curves and more about your own curves, Benjamin.
Oh!
Many in America suggested that one day, the Canadian colonies should become a part of the United States. In response, Britain suggested that many in America should shut the hell up.
Exactly.
If Britain wasn't going to give up Canada, then the two sides had
Can't
to
believe
agree
I'm
on
agreeing
where
with
to
the
put their
British
border.
here, but
Easy enough
I
for the
agree
most
with them.
part. Follow some existing borders, add in a few rivers and lakes, maybe even a parallel for good measure. But then there was a question. What would happen here?
Straight line. Just a straight line.
And so it was. The border would go from the northwesternmost point of this.
I'm pretty sure it's not
perfectly oval-shaped
actually a
lake
straight
and continue
line.
in a straight line westward until it met the Mississippi River. Perfect. Or was it? Well, as it turned out, the lake didn't actually look like this, but like this. And the Mississippi wasn't here, but here. So in the end, none of that made even the slightest bit of sense.
Well, I mean, this is the late 18th century. It's no wonder the maps were just completely inaccurate. You can't exactly blame them. They didn't have the internet and the type of tools we have today.
Don't blame the founding fathers. They were just using the best map available. Blame the guy who made it. But to the minds of the day, the issue had been solved, and it was finally time to start getting along. Oh, back to war they go.
The land out there was probably
glorious
mostly
war
empty,
of
so who really
1812
cares?
Saw the Americans try to invade Canada, and the British burn down the White House. But when all was said and done, it was pretty
achieved
much a draw.
nothing.
And once again, America and Britain had to
It was
enter
just a
into
waste of
peace
time.
negotiations. By now,
And
both sides
manpower.
realized the original border they came up with
And
was a piece of
resources.
hot garbage. And since America had also recently obtained a huge amount of land from Napoleon, they decided they would need to re-examine the border issue.
Straight line.
Straight line, straight line. And so it was. To fix the problems of the previous border agreement, they decided to go from the northwesternmost point of this lake, as had been previously agreed, down to the 49th parallel, and from there the line would go straight as an arrow up until the Rocky Mountains. But beyond the Rockies,
But
the
what
two sides
after?
couldn't quite agree on where it would go next, because both sides claimed the territory beyond the Rockies was theirs. See, throughout its early history, America as a nation had
Straight
its eyes
line,
heavily
once again.
fixated on all that juicy land out west, ripe for invasion. I mean, settlementation. America wanted to expand. Not only was it their right, some believed it was a destiny given to them by God himself to multiply
Manifest
and
destiny.
spread across the continent, like rats or disease. Okay, guys, just before we take over everything, God definitely
that's
said
pretty
this is
accurate
what we're meant to
description.
do, right? Yeah, that's what he said, right? Isn't that what he said? And who was it who spoke to God? It was Billy, right? I thought it was Sharon's cat. I hear voices all the time. Well, it was one of us. There's no way
Well,
we made
definitely
this whole
wasn't
thing
any
up
of
to
you.
justify our ruthless collective imperialist tendencies. All right. Well, in that case, let's get out there and make the world a better place, just as God intended.
Yep, making the world a better place.
This belief in divinely destined expansion would later be given its very own
A
name.
better
Manifest
place.
Destiny. But America wasn't the only one interested in controlling the Western territories. At the time, Canada was made up of a number of colonies, collectively referred to as British North America. This one over here was owned by the Hudson's Bay Company, a British charter company dedicated to turning as many beavers as possible into as many felt hats as possible as quick, and the indigenous people became a key supplier. As a result, the British were also eager to control the land out west and secure that region's valuable resources, and in particular, the Great Columbia River was deemed vital to the beaver business. So when it came to the question of what would happen to the border beyond the Rockies, the conversation went a little like this. The
Straight
line should keep going straight because we're manifestly destined to gain the entire North American continent. No, we need this river so we can keep scalping beavers. Look, why don't we just draw the border along the river? That way we both have access.
That makes perfect sense.
Well, that would be a completely fair compromise that protects the interests of both parties.
Yeah, it would be.
There's no way I'm ever going to agree to it! Having come to a roadblock, both sides simply agreed that for now,
I guess I shouldn't have expected any better from
Northwestern
them.
Territory. They were both free to settle and trade there. But rest
That's not
assured,
gonna last
the
long.
agreement was only temporary. Eventually, some
We literally have the British and the Americans. This is going to end absolutely horribly. I would not want to be stuck with people of either of these nationalities on a disputed territory, because it's going to end in a disaster.
somebody would get their way. Listen, Yank, we can jointly occupy this land, but I ain't sharing anything else. I don't want to see you using my toothbrush. I don't want to catch you wearing my underwear. And I don't want to catch you using my computer and selling my data to advertisers. Well,
Okay, advertisement.
then you, my friend, should use NordVPN. What the fuck? Do you like giving...
And skip.
Oh yeah. Bickering over boundaries, manifesting destiny, and a joint occupation of Oregon. And one man living here who felt the territory should be British was James Douglas, the Hudson's Bay Company's no-nonsense chief factor at Fort Vancouver. Ah, what a beautiful, unspoiled corner of the British Empire. I've got my spotted dick, my Spice Girls fan club membership, and an
Spotted
unrelenting
what?
negative outlook on life that affects everyone around me. What are you looking at, Stephen? Yes, truly British.
Well, it's not cold, cloudy, and miserable, so it's not really British.
The problem for men like Douglas was that many Americans had already begun streaming up the Oregon Trail. Gunslinging, howdy neighboring, diarrhea having. By the thousands, they were pouring
Dysentery.
into the Oregon Territory in search of land to settle and farm. This, however, crowded out the fur trade, and eventually, a very bitter
Oh no,
Douglas
poor
and the other
beavers.
Hudson's Bay traders at Fort Vancouver were ordered to relocate north to a new base of operations. But the Americans keep coming and they don't stop coming. Hopped in their wagons and they hit the ground running. Didn't make sense to keep sharing Oregon
That's
when
from
they
some sort
outnumbered
of
the Brits
song. I
more
just
than
don't remember
6 to
which
1.
one.
And suddenly, the whole joint occupation deal was being called into question. Newly elected President Polk maintained that America had an obvious claim to the entire region, even implying a possible war with Britain. Fiery language from U.S. senators declared that American rifles would annihilate the Hudson's Bay Company in Oregon, and America even gave Britain notice that it was pulling out of the joint occupation agreement. The British were alarmed as the two sides stood on the brink of war. But in the end, neither truly wanted to fight. The British favored maintaining good economic relations, while the Americans had already gotten themselves into
Yeah, so
a
far
war
the
with
Americans look
Mexico.
like the problem
So after
here.
a bit of back and forth, the British finally said, "Fine, you wanted a straight line? There's your straight line." And so, the agreement was made. The border would continue directly to the Strait of Georgia. But because the British insisted they keep Vancouver Island, it would then move south through the center of the channel
That is
and
a
on
fair
to the
deal.
Pacific Ocean. Finally, the issue
The Americans were being whiny little bitches. The least they have to do is give the British the damn island.
of the northwest border had been solved. Hold the phone. Discrepancy detected. Enhance frame, 200%. Enhance. Enhance.
Ain't no way they go to war because of those 3 islands there.
Perfect. Now, show me
4.
the exact wording
Wow,
of the
no,
treaty.
this is quite a lot.
The line of boundary
A bit
goes
too
to the
small
middle
to
of the channel,
matter.
and thence southerly through the middle of said channel. But
Where is the middle?
there's loads of channels. So, you tell me, dear viewer, which channel is the treaty referring to? And therefore, who owns these islands?
I would say it's just in the middle right here. That way the Americans technically get more land, so they can't complain and cause a huge problem like they usually do. And that would easily settle this entire problem.
Is the wording of the treaty maybe a little too vague?
Well, that's exactly the problem encountered by the people living in the area. The British insisted that the channel intended by the treaty was the Rosario Strait, and therefore the islands were British. The Americans, on the other hand, argued that the intended channel was the Harrow Strait, and therefore the islands were American. At times, the debate became rather heated. Even the individuals who negotiated and signed the treaty at times didn't seem entirely sure which channel the treaty meant, and representatives
Were they
from the
even
Hudson's
aware
Bay
that the
Company
islands were
begged
there?
to make it clearer. But thousands of miles away, the people in power simply had more to worry about than some tiny islands in the middle of nowhere.
Order!
Exactly.
Order! Shut up!
All right, listen up. We got a lot to get through. The 7th Earl of Chissingham says he encountered a foul beast in the fields of Upper Fardingdom late last night and put this sketch together? That's a poor person, Darren. Ugh. Next, Lord Piddlingham says he has a new mole on his backside? How is that parliamentary business, George? Oh. So
Hey, it could be
Pacific
it could be
Northwest are in
cancerous.
dispute and could lead to a war with America.
You gotta check that.
Boring. Fine. Let's take a look at that mole, George. And so, for now, the islands were simply held in dispute. Were they British or were they American? I'm sure this conflict won't cause anyone to die. And one man who thought the islands were undeniably British was James Douglas, now the governor of
All over
Vancouver
some
Island.
dumb islands.
He had already once had American settlers encroach on his territory and force him to move. And by golly, he wasn't going to let it happen again. As far as he was concerned, those islands were not only British, but prime agricultural.
So far, from the way that Oversimplified is presenting this, I am fully blaming the Americans. Because so far, it seems like they are really the only problem here. Just saying. That's how it looks like.
Cultural land. And given
This
the
is the
chance,
oversimplified
those glubby
version.
Yanks wouldn't hesitate to start
But
pitching flags with their glubby little
sure
hands.
as hell looks like the
And
Americans
so,
are the problem.
He came up with a plan. If the British settled the islands first, then that would surely secure them for Britain. And so in 1853, Douglas sent an Irishman by the name of Charles Griffin, along with some Hawaiian shepherds, to go set up a sheep farm on San Juan Island. And set up a sheep farm they did. The place was rammed with sheep, 1,369 to be exact. But within those flocks of woolly cowards
69,
could also be
nice.
found a number of beautiful, prized Berkshire pigs. Oh, Porky, you look stunning. You're the greatest
I still
thing
don't
that's ever
understand
happened to
how
me. Would
these
you
pigs
perhaps like
could be
to
the
go to
cause
the
of a
island
war.
all together tonight? Oink once for
someone
no.
steal
Roll
the
around in
pig?
that cow crap if yes.
Yes! I'm covered in poo and I'm the luckiest man alive!
But life on the island for Charles Griffin wasn't to be a perfect paradise of pig pageants, because unfortunately for him, the Americans also believed the island was theirs. One day, in 1854, an American customs collector was sailing around the islands on the outlook for bands of native tribesmen when he spotted something. Aha! I've got you now, you savages. Over yonder. Those are sheep, sir. Sheep, you say? What are they doing here? Let's go and negotiate with them. Negotiate with sheep? Are you crazy?
I'm perfectly stable, you rat bag! Call me crazy again and I'll eat your eyes!
He's quite
hello?
unhinged.
Good sir. We request to speak with your leader. Out of my way. Allow me to parley with this foul beast.
I love... Oh my god. You serious?
Hey, stop threatening my sheep. Your sheep? You mean to tell me that you, a British subject, have illegally imported these sheep into American territory?
Well, it
I'll
wasn't
have you know
illegal.
that you, an American, are currently trespassing on British territory. The Americans felt that they were entitled to collect taxes on the British property. You know, because the
You don't
island
own the
was
land.
American, and they threatened seizure if dues weren't paid. The British, meanwhile, threatened to arrest the Americans. You know, because the island was British, and the two sides were in a standoff. To give Charles Griffin the legal power to deal with the American trespassers, Douglas said, "Hey, put on this wig." Boom. You're a magistrate
What's that supposed
now.
to do?
And in turn, Griffin went to one of his Hawaiian shepherds and said,
Okay,
"Hey,
never mind.
I'm making you a constable. Put on this badge." The British then went off to arrest the U.S. Customs Inspector. But, being an American, he emerged from his tent with 4 pistols and a giant knife. So the Brits had to back
So they
down.
didn't bring any weapons?
Eventually, raids by northern tribes chased the U.S. officer from the island. But the Americans weren't done yet. Officials from nearby Whatcom County in Washington Territory believed the island fell under their jurisdiction, and they decided it was time to make the British pay up once and for all. They sent one Sheriff Barnes to go confront Charles Griffin. "Hey, you owe us $80.33 for all this farm stuff you got here. Go suck
Money
an
was
egg.
worth more back then. That's probably a lot
Oh.
more than $80.
I see. So that's how it is, huh? That's how it's gonna be, is it? That's the
You're
way
the
in
one
which
causing
things
the
are,
problem.
eh? That be
You're
how
in
it
the
will,
wrong
is it?
here.
Will it be how that is, huh? That be the way
Shut
in
the
which
hell
things
up.
be the way they are, is that? Get off my property! So the sheriff and other Whatcom County officials felt they were now well within their rights to seize and auction off Griffin's sheep in order to recoup lost taxes. And who would they auction these prized breeding rams off to but themselves? Then, in a pretty chaotic scene, they worked to tie the rams to their boats. And when Charles Griffin came running to rescue his kidnapped sheep, being Americans, they pulled out guns on him, and he had to back down.
Yeah, you know, what I said before about this being the Americans' fault, there's no spinning the story otherwise now. It is definitely the Americans' fault.
No, Charles Griffin lost 34 breeding rams,
100%.
and he was furious. The British complained to the American government, who were shocked to hear what had been going on at their northwest border. And both governments told their officials in the area to back off. We're not trying to start a major war over some dumb sheep and a stupid island. But also, the islands are definitely ours. Under no circumstances let the other side have them. For now, both governments agreed to set up yet another boundary commission to decide which channel was the correct border.
Just
But
split it in the
often
middle.
devolved into petty bickering. The British did make one interesting suggestion, though. We could draw the border through this middle channel
Yes!
and split the islands between us. Well, that would be a completely fair compromise that protects the interests of both parties. And there's no way I'm ever going to agree to it! And in the aftermath of
Americans. There's no point even saying anything. Just Americans. Should be enough.
the sheep raid, James Douglas, still stationed at Fort Victoria, became even more cautious of American encroachment into his territory.
I don't care if you're
Mr.
American and
Douglas,
you're
sir.
offended.
It appears an Indian has discovered gold in the Fraser Canyon, just north of here. Shut up! Keep your voice down, boy. We can't risk those glubby Americans hearing about this, or our territory here will be infested with them.
Too late.
Oh no! The Fraser Canyon gold rush attracted a heap of Americans to the region.
Hey, hold
Some
on, that's
got lucky.
Canadian territory.
Most did not. And of those that didn't, rather than returning all the way home, many simply decided to settle in the area. And in particular, the juicy green pastures of San Juan Island were rather appealing. Believing the island was American territory, around a dozen American settlers moved there in the late 1850s. One of them was a man named Lyman Cutler, a young man in his mid-20s.
So
and
he's
lazy
the main
as
problem
pie.
who causes
He
all
didn't
of
want to
this.
have to clear a space in the forest to build his home. So he said, I'll just build my cabin right in the middle of this British sheep run. I'm sure that won't make anyone mad. When he planted potato seeds in his garden, rather than building a nice protective fence around them, he said, I'll just fence in 3 sides and hope all these British farm animals have a moral compass and respect my property rights. Griffin's pig was a Berkshire, well known for rooting, and Lyman's fairly pathetic fence made for a bad combination. Numerous times he had had to chase the pig away from his property, and he once angrily marched up to Griffin's home, saying, "Hey, British farm idiot,
Griffin
keep your
should
stupid
punch
pig
him in
out of
the
my
face.
potatoes. It is
Knock
up to
his teeth
you
out.
to keep your potatoes out of my pig." Griffin was furious with his new American neighbors. They built their homes all over his sheep pastures. And besides, what right did they have to be here anyway? It was British territory. Lyman, on the other hand, swore the local government had assured him his land claims were legitimate. And so to him, the British were out of line. Look at that sick freak. In love with his pig. Isn't that just sick? Yeah, what a freak. Not like our loves, buddy. Ours is all natural. Yep, just a man and his potato. Nothing wrong with that. But
I
the
hope that
tension
potato
between Lyman and
dies.
Griffin was just about to explode. What the? Spuddy? Oh,
That's great.
You damn dirty pig. That's the final straw.
So it happened. The war happens because of the death
Lyman
of a pig.
Shot the
Is
pig.
that it?
After taking a second to calm down, he felt bad about murdering Griffin's prized boar. So he went to him and said,
I'm sure
"Hey, man,
he did.
look,
He
I
definitely felt
kinda
very
just
bad about it.
Killed
Yeah.
your pig. It was eating my potatoes again, and I don't know, man. I kind of just killed your pig.
This is Griffin's
Killed your pig.
villain origin story.
Killed your pig.
He's reminiscing.
You swine! No, the swine is the one I killed.
He loves a pig, but he uses swine as an insult.
I'm Lyman. Griffin demanded Lyman pay $100 for the loss of the pig, an outrageous sum at the time. Obviously, Lyman refused, threatening to shoot any more animals that dared enter his property, even threatening to shoot Griffin himself. When Griffin complained to James Douglas, British officials went and confronted the pig killer. Again, they insisted he pay up, and if he didn't, Lyman claimed they threatened to arrest him and take him back to Victoria. British officials arresting an American on American soil and trying him under British law? Now that's controversial. And it's a controversy that attracted the attention of an American general in charge of the Department of Oregon, one William S. Harney.
No competent general would look at this and go, let's go to war. Any person who's not completely incompetent would just ignore this and tell them both to shut the hell up.
This guy, General Harney, had a reputation. He's the kind of guy who invades Mexico without orders, wasting valuable resources and creating an embarrassing situation for everyone involved.
He's completely incompetent.
He's the kind of guy who has one of his own men arrested for writing the wrong header on a report. He's the kind of guy who finds a dog digging up his yard and then chases it for 1.5 miles just to give it a beating. He hated superiors,
Ain't no way these stories are actually real.
and had been court-martialed 4 times for disobeying orders. Contemporaries described him as an imbecile, all matter and no mind, an arrogant humbug, and a laughingstock. Like I said, General Harney had a reputation. He
How
hated
did he
the
get to
British
his position
and was
in
out
the
for any
in
opportunity
the
to earn
American
personal
Army?
glory for himself. By
How is he a general? Were the standards really that low at the time?
some accounts, he even wanted to become president. And so,
Oh,
in
good
July
God.
1859, when he happened to visit San Juan Island, and he learned of the plight of the Americans living there, the shooting of a pig, and the British threat to arrest Lyman Cutler, General Harney went into scheme mode. Hey yo, Captain Pickett.
Another
Yes, sir.
incompetent general?
Listen carefully. I need you to go pick up some flowers and bring them to my place later. I've got a plan. Here I am, sir. What's the plan? Pickett, you and I are going to start a war. What do you mean, sir? Okay, listen up. An American man shoots a worthless pig.
So the war didn't really start because of the pig. It started because of some dumb American. Although an American shot the pig. So it started because of, and also there's this guy. So it started because of 3 dumb Americans. Someone who just shot a pig because he's an idiot. An incredibly incompetent general who should have been probably put to death. He was court-martialed 4 times. He started a war without orders. He should have had the death penalty or something. He should be in jail. And he should not be a general. And whoever this Pickett guy is, I'm assuming he's also another idiot, considering he's talking with this imbecile.
On San Juan Island, and the British threatened to arrest him. Outrageous, but we can use it. We get the settlers there to send us a petition saying they need American troops for protection. That's when you go with your men and occupy the island. The British will find American troops on an island they consider theirs so offensive, they won't hesitate to blow you to smithereens. Then, it's war.
Well, the difference
We
is the
bring in
British general
reinforcements
who's in
and
the
we
area
fight
will
back.
probably
I'll write
actually
to Washington, D.C.
not be a
let them
complete
know what's
imbecile
happening.
like
But here's the kicker. My
this
letter
guy.
will take 6 whole weeks to get there, before the government even gets a chance to respond, telling me I'm an idiot and ordering me to cease fire. The
Harney,
island
okay.
will be ours. Hell, we could even invade Vancouver Island or British Columbia. It's foolproof. Wow, very impressive, sir. But I gotta ask, why? Well, I'll level with you, Pickett. Historians still contest exactly what it is I'm trying to do here. It's
I think
possible
he's just
I'm
an
trying to
idiot.
expand America's territory. Maybe I'm trying to play the hero so I can become president. Some have even suggested that since I'm a slave-owning Southerner, I may be trying to create a diversion to help the South secede in the upcoming Civil War. But if there's one thing that almost everyone can agree on, it's that I'm an idiot. I see.
That's probably the reason.
Hold on. What you tell me to bring flowers for?
Because this plan is by
Pickett,
no means
They're
foolproof.
pretty and I like them.
There are also historians who believe that Harney and Pickett had no secret plan at all, and were not
Yeah.
scheming masterminds, but simply hot-headed buffoons, genuinely
Oh,
outraged at
definitely.
the audacity of the British, and trying to protect American citizens. But the fact of the matter is, Pickett took the very controversial and extremely provocative act of landing American troops on disputed territory. He set up his camp in a very exposed position and erected a very provocative
If the
sign
British don't get
proclaiming
the
that only
islands
American
at
laws
the end of this,
applied on
then
the island. It was almost like he was asking to be fired upon.
I'm gonna be
Or,
pissed.
Again, maybe he was just an idiot. When a British official sent to the island to get rid of the unruly American settlers now saw that there were American troops, he demanded they leave. He was obviously told to go suck an egg. When Douglas found out, he was enraged. To him, the American landing constituted an invasion. Harney sent a report back to
It
the
kind
War
of is an
Department in
invasion.
DC, justifying his actions with
disputed
exaggerated
territory.
claims of British villainy. But he knew it would take 6 weeks to get there, and another 6 weeks for their reply to come back. For now, the situation was entirely in the hands of local military and government officials, and the ball was in the British court. Would the temperamental Governor Douglas and the powerful British Navy respond to the American provocation with force? Were Britain and America really about to go to war over the shooting of a pig? Well, if one man were to have his way, it's entirely possible they would. James Douglas had already had Americans force him out of Oregon. They had threatened his position in Victoria
Don't
during
do
the
it,
gold
dude.
rush. Now they had invaded his island, and he
It's not worth it.
had it. It was time to turn to the Royal Navy. You, Captain Hornby, go to the island and
Okay, so never mind. We have 4 idiots. The American who shot the pig, the incompetent general, Pickett, and this guy. 4 idiots.
prevent any more Americans from landing. And take this magistrate with you to arrest Captain Pickett. Use force if necessary. Just don't do anything to start a war. Wait. You
But you're
want me to use
using
force,
force,
but
so that's gonna
not
be a
start
war.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that too much to ask, Princess? When Captain Hornby got to the island
Yeah, you
and saw that
fucking
the American force there
snowflake.
was even larger than expected, his concern grew. He sent word back to Douglas, who in response ordered even more ships to the island. And at this point, the naval officers were like, "Hey man, let's talk." They were concerned Douglas's escalation
The time for
was
talk is
leading them
over.
to
It's
war,
the time
and
for
they convinced
action
him
now.
It probably wasn't a terribly good idea to just go up to an American military captain with his armed men and say, "Hey bucko, you're under arrest. Please don't shoot me." Douglas gave in. To prevent any hostilities, he canceled all orders and told the Navy, for now, to simply keep an eye on the Americans. He did send one more ship for good measure. Captain Pickett, now seeing the British ships with their guns aimed directly at his exposed camp,
Okay,
said,
so maybe
"See,
the
Jeff?
British guy isn't
Look
that
at
much
that.
of an idiot.
We're
He can
about to
actually
get blown
listen
to
to
bits,
reason.
all according to plan." Hang on. Oh crap!
Yeah,
Jeff,
think
we're
about that for a
about to get
second.
blown to bits! Run! Pickett hastily moved his camp from its very exposed position to another position.
You're on an island.
Which, as it happened, was also very exposed.
Exactly.
It probably won't surprise you to learn Pickett came dead last in his graduating class.
So he is an
Nearby
idiot.
American and British officials began showing up to ask Pickett what the heck he was even doing. Then, a bunch of tourists showed up, because a major war breaking out in their doorstep was the single most exciting thing to ever happen in any of their miserable frontier lives.
That's
One
fair,
Charles
that's fair.
Griffin was particularly unhappy. First, his pig had been shot. Now his sheep pastures were being trampled by soldiers and tourists alike. He complained to Governor Douglas, who was still pretty upset about the whole thing. Douglas felt British honor itself was at stake, so he decided that if American forces were allowed to be on the island, well then by golly,
Oh, no.
the British should be there too. It would be a joint military occupation. Upon hearing Douglas's
It
new
is
plan
disputed
to
territory.
land British troops on the island,
This would be
Captain
fair.
Hornby decided to go speak with Pickett in person. After informing him of the plan, Pickett replied that if they dared land, he would open fire. So
He
there
won't
they
do it.
were. The
Too much
British
of a
had
coward.
orders to land. The Americans had orders to prevent their landing. This was it. War. Over a small island in the middle of nowhere. Over a pig and some potatoes. Over whether the US-Canada border looked like this or like this.
There's no
It
difference. You
was
can't
stupid.
tell.
Hold on. This is stupid. To heck with it. I'm not landing those troops. I'm not gonna be the one who starts a war. The captain decided not to follow Douglas's order. And good thing he didn't, because pretty soon after that, the leading British admiral in the entire Pacific region showed up. Rear Admiral Baines outranked Governor Douglas. When he heard of everything that had been going on, he was stunned. But when he heard that Hornby had refused Douglas's plan to land troops, Baines
Promote
could have
him.
kissed him. Whether he did or not, history doesn't tell. but I like to think they did. The Rear Admiral canceled all of Douglas's orders and instead pursued a policy of not interfering with the Americans until he could contact the British government. The Americans, not knowing the British no longer intended to land, had sent reinforcements and began
The British are
fortifying.
coming.
But even still, the British Navy did nothing. And finally, when word made it across the planet, informing the two governments of the ongoing crisis, everyone was shocked. Holy crap! Harney landed troops on disputed territory? Man, I hope the British
Why is he
don't
still a
find out
general
about
at this point? He's been court-martialed 4
Buchanan. Oh, crap!
times.
The British! Why are we getting reports of American troops on San Juan Island? Whoa. I don't know, man. Nothing to do with me. But you're the president. What? Breckenridge? Am I the president? Yes, sir. And hey, we got a problem. It looks like the southern states are considering seceding.
Was the American
and we're
president at the
headed for
time this guy
biggest
also
crisis
just
in the
completely
history of the
incompetent?
nation. And it's your job to fix it,
Because
sir.
it kind of seems like it.
Sir? Oh no.
That's how Oversimplified is presenting
Not
this.
the curtain again, Mr. President.
I'm not here.
Buchanan. Back in the Pacific Northwest, Harney was beginning to realize the government may not be terribly impressed with his reckless actions. So he began firing
I
off
wonder
even more
why.
aggressive letters, justifying what he had done. Tell him the British were sending bands of Indians to attack our men, and that they're big meanies with coal for hearts, and that they made me cry like a little girl. Wait, no, that makes me sound weak. They made me cry like a big girl. Yeah, that's it. When the president received Harney's new letters, his anxiety only grew stronger. Oh, crap. Hey, General Scott, please make this go away. Leave it to me, sir. General Winfield Scott was the commanding general of the entire U.S. Army. Well known for his negotiation skills, he was a veteran of the Mexican-American War.
Finally
during
someone
which time
smart.
he had had to deal with General Harney's idiocy and insubordination, and he watched as Harney got away with it all thanks to his friends in high places. It's safe to
Oh,
say
that's
that
why
Scott
he still
really
has
did
the
not
rank
like
of
General
general.
Harney. By now, General Scott was racked with gout, and he was so big he had to be hoisted onto his ship in a basket. Nevertheless, he began the long journey to the Pacific Northwest. Okay, everyone.
I hope he
get
beats
over
Harney's
here.
ass.
Will somebody please tell me what the heck is going on? I'll tell you, General. It all started on one fateful day last summer.
It's gonna be a he said, she said type story.
Spuddy?
Type situation.
All right, you damn dirty pig. That's the final straw. What? Hey, you
Just
can't
run
get away
away.
from me! Oh, look at that pig. Nowhere left to run, eh? I'm gonna enjoy this.
Simon, if you spare my life, I grant you 3 wishes.
What? Oh my god. He still just shot him.
So you see, General, the pig wasn't even on his property when he shot it. Liar! He's lying to you, General. I'll tell
It's
you
not even his
what
property.
really
He can't
happened.
legally own the land.
What a pleasant summer's afternoon here on my humble farm.
It's not even his
just
damn
me
country. It's
and my
disputed
beloved
territory.
potatoes. I'm so happy. Say, Lyman, them some nice spuds you got there.
Why is he
Would
a
be a
mafia
shame if
boss?
somebody ate them. No, not again, you beast! Leave my potatoes alone! Yeah, I'm gonna eat them, Lyman. I'll eat them, and then I'm gonna eat you. Stay back! I'll shoot! Go ahead, punk. Make my day. Shoot me! Shoot me! He made me do it! He made me do it! So you're telling me you guys nearly started a war with the strongest naval power in the world over the shooting of a pig? Yeah, now he's starting to get it. Not only the pig, sir. The British then threatened to arrest this poor, pure American soul. Thank you, General. Shut up. I don't care about you. Okay, I've made up my mind. You're an idiot.
You're all
You're an
idiots.
idiot. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. You guys are fine. And you two are the most mind-numbingly brain-dead ding-dongs I've ever encountered in all my life. And I'll see you in my office. Okay, Harney, listen. I cut a deal with the Brits. Here's how it's gonna be. Both sides will maintain a small force on the island for a joint
Strip
military
him of his
occupation
rank.
until our two governments
That guy should not be a general. He shouldn't. He should be in prison.
can decide who owns the island. Now, the only way they'd agree to that is if Pickett is removed from command. So I'm replacing him with Captain Hunt here. Now, Harney, listen to me. Do not, under any circumstances, put Pickett back on that island. Okay? I mean it, Harney. Do not order Pickett back onto the island. Understood?
He's gonna
Yes,
order
sir.
him back to the
Good.
island.
I'll see you Glebos later.
Where you go?
Is he gone?
Oh,
I
he's
think
waiting.
so. Good. Hunt, you're fired. Pickett, you're going back
Oh,
on
now
the
you're gonna
island.
get it.
All right, you psychopath. I've been waiting years for this. I hate you. I've always hated you.
Harney had not only ordered Pickett back onto the island, but his department even notified the British that it did not recognize the joint occupation settlement, while everyone else had decided
After all of this, the British should get the islands. I'm just gonna say it, the British should get it. Because this entire inconvenience is caused just mainly by the Americans.
on peace. Harney appeared to still be threatening war. Needless to say, a furious Winfield Scott soon removed him from command and sent him elsewhere. In Harney's absence, the joint occupation went ahead, and the troops actually
Surely almost causing a war because of such a stupid reason would be enough to justify getting rid of him. Why did you just send him somewhere else? Were his friends in high places actually that powerful?
got along together quite well. The British attended 4th of July celebrations at the American camp, while the Americans visited the British for Queen Victoria's birthday. Even Pickett became good friends with his British counterpart. War, it seemed, had been avoided, thanks largely to the level-headed actions of the Royal Navy and General Winfield Scott. Of course, the islands were still in dispute, and the question of who exactly owned them still had to be answered. That answer would have to wait, because while San Juan was at peace, the nation was tearing itself apart.
Oh yeah,
When Civil War broke out in
Civil
1861,
War.
the issue of San Juan just wasn't that important. Harney, despite being a Southerner, remained in the U.S. Army, but was eventually removed from command at St. Louis when his loyalty to the Union came under suspicion. More famously,
Good.
Captain Pickett, a native
Finally.
Virginian, went on to become a Confederate general. Pickett's charge at the
Oh.
Battle of Gettysburg remains one of the most famous moments of the entire war and marked a major turning point. U.S. relations with Britain actually soured during the war. The British, missing their supply of southern cotton, initially looked like they may intervene on the side of the Confederacy. There was the Trent Affair, when Confederate diplomats were discovered and arrested on a British mail steamer. And then there were the British-built ships, sold to the Confederacy, that wreaked havoc on northern commerce. When the Civil War ended, furious
So
American
I'm guessing the Americans are gonna use that as justification to claim the islands, which is total bullshit. Can't blame the British. They wanted the cotton, and they were gonna get it. I do not blame them in the slightest for that.
Politicians called on the British to pay reparations, and by now, a long list of hot issues existed between them. And yes, on that list remained, 12 years later,
Maybe what I
still
heard
the
was just
issue
wrong, I
of
don't
who
know.
owned these gosh darn islands. That issue, it was finally agreed, would be submitted to international arbitration. The Empire of Germany would decide, with the British and Americans
Germany.
presenting arguments. The American argument was reportedly presented with a little more pizzazz, a little more zing. And in the end, when the Germans made their decision, they awarded the San Juan Islands to the United States.
How'd that work out for you a couple hundred years
When
later
Agent
during World
Douglas
War
heard
I and
the
II?
news, he said that there was no possible way the British argument had been presented correctly. But that
Take
was
that, Germany.
The British conceded, and on the 25th of November, 1872, the last British troops left the island. As the Americans entered the British camp to raise their flag, they found that the British had removed the flagpole. One last up yours to Uncle Sam. By this time, Charles Griffin had already
Deserved.
left the island, and the Hudson's Bay Company eventually sold their sheep farm. And so, there you have it. A dangerous situation that almost brought two great powers to war, triggered by the shooting of a pig. But thanks to more level-headed minds and an eagerness for peace and cooperation, conflict was avoided. And the only casualty of this pig war was, well,
Was the pig.
just a pig. But how different could things have been? What if the British had attempted to arrest Pickett? What if they had landed troops? Could the two sides have actually gone to war? Could America have invaded Canada? Could it
Probably
perhaps
not.
still invade Canada?
Well,
Think
America
about
could
it.
definitely invade Canada
Why
right
not?
now.
We have the manpower. We have the arms. It's our manifest destiny. Picture a future where American Mounties wear red, white, and blue and hail the stars and stripes.
where
Sounds like a
Wayne
horrible
Gretzky
future.
would wave the American flag every 4th of July in the streets of Montreal. Maple syrup, the greatest American food. Banff, the greatest American national park. One united nation under the leadership of our glorious president, Drake. No longer shall we tolerate our smug neighbors to the north with their affordable insulin and endless comments complaining that I don't talk about Canada enough in my videos. That's right, Canadians. Watch your backs. Sleep with one eye open tonight because Biden's coming, baby. And this time, he's
Well,
coming.
he ain't, because he's done. Biden's never coming back. So, now that I've successfully offended every single American watching this video and forced them to leave a dislike, why don't you leave a like, subscribe and comment? And if you're interested, why not check out my reaction to Henry VIII by Oversimplified? And with that, I hope I'll see you in the next video.